Hello students, here are your notes for 4.9 Indirect Measurement. This is within the same chapter that you've been learning about all of your ratios and proportions. And this directly relates to that because you're still using those same skills and concepts. These problems are more real life problems that you would be able to use more often in real life rather than just some of the examples that you had in class. Here are some of the notes that we took in class. Again, you can always feel free to pause at any time that you need to. All right, let's start off with some examples here. What we notice is that there's a light pole. There's a light pole outside, and we're just curious how tall that light pole is. We're just wondering. We don't 6 feet long. We also notice nearby there's a fire hydrant. Now, in this case, when we're talking about this, these are still corresponding sides like we had talked about in the last section. These corresponding sides could be shadow. So what I could do is I can say small to big equals small to big still. So let's go small to big equals small to big. Small to big equals small to big. Small would be the fire hydrant. Big would be the light pole. On the fire hydrant, I know small shadow is 5. And on the light pole, the big shadow is 26. So that would be 5 to 26 equals, on the small shadow, I can measure this fire hydrant, and I can call it 2.5. And the height of the lamp is h. So now, using the lessons that we learned yesterday on proportions and how to solve proportions, we can do our cross multiplying to set this up. So let's start with 5 times h, and that would give us 5h. And next we would have 26 times 2.5. So we're going to go 26 times 2.5. And that gives us an answer of 65. So 26 times 2.5, oops, my memory's bad, is 65. So now I know that 5h equals 65. Remember, it's important to show all your work or you will not receive credit for these problems. Showing your work means setting up the equation after you set up your proportion and solving it using inverse operations. So now I'm going to divide these two, and I'm going to find out that h equals 13. So the height of this lamp pole is 13, and again we're going to go back to our units. I should have written that in here first. I apologize. 13 feet. Question, why do we call this a fire hydrant? It doesn't emit fire, it emits water. I don't know. Okay, we'll move on. All right, indirect measurement again. So we want to know how far this lake is. Well, obviously, I can't walk across this lake to figure out how far it is. I possibly nowadays could use some sort of GPS monitoring to help me figure out how far this is. But let's say that on the land over here, I could walk. I could walk and find out that this was 30. I could also walk part of this triangle and find out how long this is and how long this is. So what do I have here? I actually have two triangles that I need to compare. The two triangles I need to compare, oh, these are drawing the wrong way, so let me finish drawing them and let's rotate. I'm going to rotate this to match. Would be one triangle and two triangle. And I don't think this is going to let me extend. Let me see if there's one other form of triangle here that I can use. No, it's not going to let me. I should get rid of that. Hold on. All right, so pretend that this triangle started here and it extended all the way out. It's not going to let me extend it. I'll try one more time, but I'm pretty sure it won't. Yeah, it won't let me do that. And then that this other one is this secondary triangle that is on top here. So they overlap each other. What is more important, however, are the corresponding parts. When I look at the corresponding parts, I have this on the little triangle being 320 meters. So this would be 320 meters. This on the big triangle would be this part right here. Well, if this much is 320 and this is 162, I have to add those together. 320 plus 162 is 482. So this would be 482 meters. This was part of the little triangle, and this is part of the little triangle, that 40. So I know that this here is 40, and I also know that this is part of the long, or the big triangle, but I don't know how much it is. It's D. That's what I'm trying to find. Now I'm going to go back and continue to use my small over big equals small over big. And from there, I can solve the problem. First, I have to put in my data and set up my proportion. So my corresponding sides would be this side and this side. So I'll have 320 over 482 equals, go back to my small figure where it's 40 over the big figure where it's D. Now I have to use my proportions again, cross multiply. D times 320 is very simple, 320D. Then I have to multiply this one, and because it's a Friday, I am going to use the calculator just so I do not make a mistake. I'm going to get 1,000, whoops, I should memorize it first, 19,280. I'm going to get 19,280. I'll set up my railroad tracks, and I'll divide. Divide both sides by 320. This side will turn into 1, or we say cancel out. Then I'll take my 19,280, divide it by 320, and I'll get 60.25. Remember the distances I was finding are in meters. So the distance is 60 meters and 25 hundredths. So 60 and 25 hundredths of a meter, or 60 and 1/4 meter. Let's try another example. Notice we have two triangles here. Let me try a highlighter this time and see if I can highlight the two triangles for us. Do the best I can to draw straight lines. Here is one of the triangles, and that would obviously be our small triangle. And now these two colors will overlap. I'll try to go on the outside here. And this would be the large triangle. So we can say small to big equals small to big, or we could even say green to pink equals green to pink, whatever we want to say. I'll stick with small to big just to keep our lessons consistent. So let's find some corresponding sides. I know they share this right angle here, and that this angle would be the same as that one, and this angle would be the same as this angle. I know that on the small figure from here to here is 4. And the side that corresponds on the big angle goes all the way across here. Let's see if yellow will highlight more. Goes all the way across. So I have to add these two values together to get the 6, or to get the 8. So it's going to be 4 to 8. Then I know the hypotenuse side here, or this long side, is a 6 on the small. And I want to know what is it on the pink, or Kentucky Lane. Notice it says Kentucky Lane is this road right here, which would be this long one. So how long is that? We don't know. Again, I want to take the time and use my cross multiplying. I'm going to take 4 times x is 4x. 6 times 8 is 48. I'm going to set up my railroad tracks. I'm going to divide by 4. Before I even do this, you should be able to think about what that's going to be. If you notice that this was 1/2, what is this going to have to be to equal 1/2? I'll cancel these out. Have you guessed 12 yet? Hopefully you did, because that's what it is. Notice that our units are in miles, so just make sure you write that down. Let's try another one. How tall is the tree? Continue to look for corresponding sides. Here it looks kind of silly because I don't see any triangles, but I could very easily make a triangle by just moving that point in, or make a triangle here by moving that line in. This would still be for that height, and this would still be for that height. Small to big equals small to big. I'm not trying to be tricky. I'm just trying to keep it easy. Small to big equals small to big. So on the small figure here, this side, this tall side here, is 0.45 or 45 hundredths. And on the big side, it corresponds to h. On the small figure, I have 3/10 of a meter. And on the big tree, I have 2.2. 2 and 2/10 of a meter. Now let's do our cross multiplying. Here, I'll get 0.3 or 3/10 h. And over here, I will get 0.45 times 2.2. I will get 99 hundredths. Oh, this is going to work out nice. 99 hundredths. So now I have 90, actually I'll write it over here. 99 hundredths equals 3/10 h. What am I solving for? H. What is bothering it? 3/10. How? By multiplying. So the inverse is divide. I want to divide both sides by 3/10. And I'm going to find out that goes in there 3 and 3/10 of a time. That should be my height. Let's just make sure this makes sense. Because again, it's Friday. There you go. 3.3, 3 and 3/10 would be your height. 3, and again, it's in meters. So make sure you get your label in there of meters. Make sure you show your work, each of your steps. We have time. Hopefully we can get this last example in. We have time for this last example. And this is a great example just due to the fact that the triangles aren't set up in the exact same way. We have to do some research here. It wants us to find the distance from the park to the house. From the park to the house. So we have a few steps we have to do, but I need to get this distance here. In order to do that, I have to find this distance. All right, so I know I want to set up small to big equals small to big. Let's take a different color here. Let me find the highlighter again. We'll take the highlighter, and I see that this distance here is 3 dashes to 2 dashes. So let's look down here. 3 dashes to 2 dashes. Oh, that's 5. So 5 on the small and D on the big. Those are corresponding sides. So I'm going to write that down just so I don't forget. Whoop, different color. 5 on the small is with D on the big. 5 on the small, D on the big. I know on the big I have this other value here of 8. So now I need to figure out what side does that correspond to on the other figure. This 8 here is 2 dashes to 1 dash. So I'm going to come over here. Here's 2 dashes to 1 dash. Well, what does that work with? 4. So now I can put that 4 right on top here. Just like the last example, you could probably estimate what this value is going to be here. But let's just do our cross multiplying to make sure. 8 times 5 is 40. 4 times the letter D is 4D. So now I have 40 equals 4D. Divide both sides by 4. 10 equals D. Now, on a test, I would love to see that you get 10, but I would have to mark it wrong. Make sure you go back and you read what the question is asking you. Find the distance from the park to the house. We have to go back and finish the rest of this. All we found is that this value here was 10. So to finish this problem, we would have to take 10 plus 5, and our final answer would be 15 meters. I hope this was helpful to you. Good luck on your assignment.